It is a known fact that the US has done some terrible things throughout history. We all know about Trail of Tears, slavery, and so many more things. The nice thing is we know at least a few things of what they have done, but what about the things we don't know? In this video, I will be breaking down atrocities that the US government has committed and tried to cover up. Warning, this video may be disturbing for some. The most recognized one is the Waco Siege. On February 28, 1993, 80 agents from the U.S. Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, also known as the ATF, raided a religious compound at Mount Carmel near Waco, Texas, after receiving multiple reports that the Branch Davidians and their leader, David Koresh, were violating federal firearm regulations. What were the agents' goals? To search the premises and arrest Koresh for unlawful weapons possession, but the plan went south fast, with 4 federal agents and 6 Branch Davidians dying in a chaotic shootout. It's still not clear who fired the first shot though. The FBI now became embroiled in a 51-day standoff with Koresh at the compound. During this time, negotiators arranged for the release of 35 Branch Davidians, including 21 children. But on April 19, 1993, in an attempt to lure Koresh and his followers out, agents took decisive action that critics later called extreme or unwarranted. They rammed the building with tanks and launched a tear gas assault. The structure caught fire and 76 Branch Davidians, which included 28 children, died in the flames. It was never officially confirmed who started the fire, but there are multiple theories from David, who probably purposely started the fire, to the FBI doing it to force the Davidians out, or it was just the tear gas. But in the end, none of this would have happened if the state had just left them alone. Moving on is the Ruby Ridge scandal. On August 21, 1992, a paramilitary unit of the U.S. Marshal Service ventured out into a 20-acre property known as Ruby Ridge. A man named Rudy Weaver owned the land, and he lived there with his wife, children, and a family friend, Kevin Harris. There was an outstanding warrant for Weaver's arrest for a firearms offense, and the marshals were surveilling the premises. When the family dog noticed the marshal sneaking around in the woods, it began to bark wildly. Weaver's 14-year-old boy Sammy and Kevin Harris proceeded to grab their rifles because they thought the dog had come upon a wild animal. They had no idea what they were about to get into. A firefight erupted when a marshal shot and killed the dog. Enraged that the family pet had been cut down for no good reason, Sammy shot into the woods at the unidentified trespasser. Within a few minutes, 2 human beings were shot dead. The 14-year-old Sammy Weaver and a marshal. Harris and the family retreated into their cabin, and the marshals retreated from the mountain and called for FBI assistance. After an 11-day standoff, Weaver agreed to finally surrender. The FBI told the world it had apprehended a band of dangerous racists. The New York Times was duped by the FBI into describing the family and one adult friend as an armed separatist brigade. The Department of Justice proceeded to take over the case, charging Weaver and Harris with conspiracy to commit murder. Federal prosecutors asked an Ohio jury to impose the death penalty. Instead, the jury acquitted Weaver and Harris for all serious criminal charges. Embarrassed by the outcome, FBI officials told the world that there would be a thorough review of the case, but the Bureau closed their ranks and covered up the mess. FBI Director Louis Freeh went so far as to promote one of his agents involved, Larry Potts, to the Bureau's #2 position. This was another situation that if the state had just left them alone, none of this would have happened. The next one is Project MKUltra, which personally is one of the more horrific events. After World War II, the US government used a ton of resources to gain as much knowledge and information from Germany to gain power. They confiscated war-related documents from Germans and interrogated their scientists. During this time, they brought over 1,600 scientists and their families to America to work on behalf of the US government. Why? Another world power was on the rise, and the US wanted to gain as much intellectual power over them as possible. Even though President Truman allowed the German scientists to work for them, he did not want any Nazis to work for the program. So the program destroyed any evidence of the scientists committing war crimes on behalf of the Nazis. The US had learned that the USSR was possibly using mind control on the prisoners of war in the Korean War. Because of this, the US had launched Project MKUltra. MKUltra was conducted in secrecy for over a decade between the 1950s and 60s and experimented with the use of biological and chemical materials in altering human behavior. Estimated over thousands of test subjects were used, and many did not have an idea what they were signing up for. The head of the project, Dr. Sidney Gottlieb, wanted to create a way to seize control of people's minds, and he realized it was a 2-part process. First, you had to blast away the existing mind. Second, you had to find a way to insert a new mind into the resulting void. And what did Gottlieb believe was the best way to blast away the mind? Lysergic acid diethylamide, otherwise known as LSD. In the 50s, Gottlieb convinced the CIA to buy up all the LSD on US soil and begin distributing the drug onto test subjects. During this time, the bosses had let him experiment almost entirely unsupervised, but this was only due to the fact that they did not want to know what was happening. This allowed for Gottlieb to have the ability to not report the serious tragedies which often happened. In 1963, CIA Inspector General John Vance found out about the project and was disgusted and deemed it unethical. Due to this, Project MKUltra was scaled back, and eventually Gottlieb came to the conclusion that LSD was useless and mind control was not possible. The program was shut down in 1973 and all documentation was ordered to be destroyed. But an 8,000-page file which related MKUltra's details was left over accidentally and found. Exposed to the public, the people put together what happened and more horrific details were revealed. In one instant, a patient was fed LSD constantly for 174 days. The craziest part about this was when a man by the name of Frank Olson apparently committed suicide by jumping out of the window of a building. Olson was a scientist who was a colleague of Gottlieb and had information about the project. What makes it even more disturbing was that a few years later, in 1994, his body was exhumed again by the order of Olson's son. It was found that before he died, Frank Olson had suffered a blow to the head. Nothing was done about it. What makes it even that much more disturbing is that if we have not found that 8,000-page file, none of this would have been known. Which begs the question, what other terrible projects has happened, or even possibly happening now? Those are just a few atrocities that the US government has committed against the people. If you guys really enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe, and I'll make a part 2. But yeah, I'll see you on the next one. Y'all have a good one.